The luxury dealership was a palace of glass and steel, filled with sparkling chandeliers and cars worth more than most homes. Every corner reflected wealth and exclusivity. The polished marble floor glowed under the lights, and whispers of money seemed to hang in the air. Into this world stepped an elderly black couple, hand in hand, dressed in clean but modest clothes. The man wore a faded hat and an old blazer. The woman wore a neat dress that had seen better days. Their eyes carried curiosity, not arrogance. They had come only to look, but the atmosphere shifted the moment they walked inside. Conversations paused, heads turned. A woman in designer sunglasses lowered them and gave a smirk. A pair of young men laughed softly to each other, glancing at the couple as if they were out of place. The couple ignored it, trying to admire the beauty of the vehicles, their eyes lingering on the sleek body of a Rolls-Royce. For a moment, they felt excitement, but it quickly faded under the weight of judgmental stares. From across the showroom, a sales associate noticed them. Tall, well-dressed, and full of pride, he walked toward them with a smile that was more cruel than kind. His polished shoes tapped against the marble as if announcing his authority. Stopping just short of the couple, he looked them over from head to toe. His tone was polite but dripping with poison. "Good afternoon. I think you're in the wrong place," he said. "These cars start at $900,000. People like you don't usually shop here." The word struck like a blade. The old man's brows furrowed. "We were only looking," he replied softly, but his voice carried quiet strength. The woman squeezed his hand, her face tight with shame and hurt. Around them, laughter rippled again, light but cruel. Even another employee covered her mouth to hide a grin. The salesman continued, crossing his arms. "Looking is fine, but let's be realistic. These cars are for serious buyers, not for dreamers." His pause was deliberate, his eyes resting on their skin with obvious intent. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. Her husband stood taller, refusing to break, even as pain settled deep in his chest. He said calmly, "Respect should cost nothing. You have no right to insult us." The salesman smirked. "I'm not insulting you. I'm telling you the truth." The silence in the dealership was heavy. Everyone watched, some entertained, some uncomfortable. A young Latina associate, Emily, clenched her fists, horrified at the cruelty unfolding. But before she could step forward, the elderly couple turned and walked slowly toward the door. Their dignity was intact, but their hearts were heavy. Outside, the woman finally let her tears fall. "I didn't think we'd still face this," she whispered. Her husband sighed, his shoulders sinking. "We shouldn't have come. This place isn't for us." Through the glass, the salesman watched them leave, a smug smile on his face. Inside, quiet laughter continued. The couple walked into the bright sunlight, their steps slow, their pride wounded, but not broken. They didn't know that this moment of humiliation was only the beginning. The very next day, everything would change. That night, the elderly couple sat silently at their small dining table. The modest home around them was neat, filled with memories of a life built on hard work and sacrifice. Framed photos of family lined the walls, birthdays, graduations, milestones that spoke of love and perseverance. Yet the weight of the day's humiliation pressed heavily on their hearts. The old man sat with his hands folded, staring at his cup of tea that had long gone cold. "I never thought at this age we would still be looked at like that," he murmured. His wife reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly as it covered his. "We've faced worse, and we've survived, but it hurts when people still can't see us for who we are." A deep silence followed, broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the wall. For the first time in years, they felt powerless, not because of money, but because of the cruelty of prejudice. They had not wanted to buy a car that day. They had only wished to admire something beautiful. Instead, they had been reminded that the world could still be cold. Later that evening, the phone rang. Their son's voice came through, calm but filled with concern. "Mom, Dad, is everything okay? You sound tired." The mother tried to sound cheerful, but her voice cracked. "We went out today, and we were embarrassed." treated like we didn't belong. On the other end, silence lingered before the son spoke again, his tone sharper, steady as steel. Tell me exactly what happened. The father hesitated, not wanting to burden him. But his wife recounted every detail, the cold looks, the mocking laughter, the salesman's cruel words. When she finished, the line went quiet. Then came his reply, firm and deliberate. Thank you for telling me. Tomorrow I'll make sure they never forget who they disrespected. The couple exchanged worried glances. They knew their son was no ordinary man. He was a young billionaire, a self-made success who had built companies and shaped industries. But he was also humble, never flaunting his wealth. His power lay in his quiet strength and his sharp mind. He had inherited his parents' resilience, but also carried a fire against injustice. That night, the couple slept uneasily. The words of the salesman replayed in their minds. People like you. It echoed like poison, wrapping around their hearts. Yet deep inside, a spark of hope flickered. Their son had promised something. The next morning, the dealership was busy once again. Shiny cars gleamed under the lights and salespeople circled like hawks. The arrogant salesman from the day before adjusted his tie, confident and smug as ever. He spoke with a wealthy client, his tone dripping with charm. To him, yesterday's scene was already forgotten. But outside, the sound of powerful engines broke the morning calm. Heads turned as not one but two Rolls-Royce cars approached. Sleek, rare, and commanding, they glided to a stop in front of the dealership like kings arriving at their castle. The glass doors reflected their polished exteriors as they parked side by side. Whispers erupted. Customers craned their necks. Employees rushed to the windows. Rolls-Royces were rare, but two arriving together was unheard of. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The doors opened slowly, deliberately. From the first car stepped the elderly couple, the same ones mocked and dismissed the day before. Their modest clothes were unchanged, their presence quiet, yet every eye was now on them. From the second car emerged their son, tall and composed, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. His very presence radiated confidence and power. He glanced at his parents, then at the dealership, his jaw tight with controlled anger. Inside, the arrogant salesman froze mid-sentence, his smile fading. Recognition hit him like a storm. The couple he had shamed had returned, and this time, they were not alone. The stage was set. Justice was about to arrive. The glass doors slid open with a smooth hiss as the black couple and their son entered the dealership. The entire showroom seemed to fall into silence. Sales associates paused mid-sentence, customers stopped mid-step, and every pair of eyes turned toward the trio. The soft hum of luxury cars and background music was drowned out by the weight of curiosity and tension. The son walked between his parents with calm authority. He didn't need to raise his voice, didn't need to announce who he was. His presence alone demanded respect. His suit was sharp, his watch subtle, yet expensive, and his gaze unwavering. There was no arrogance in his step, only determination. He placed a gentle hand on his mother's shoulder, reassuring her as she trembled slightly. The arrogant salesman from the day before felt a wave of unease rise inside him. His confidence cracked, but he forced a smile as he approached. "Welcome back," he said stiffly, trying to recover his composure. His eyes flickered nervously between the elderly couple and their son. The son met his gaze directly. "Yesterday, my parents came here to look at cars. They were insulted, mocked, and told they did not belong. Was it you who said that to them?" His voice was calm, but it carried an edge that made the room tighten. The salesman shifted uncomfortably. "I may have been misunderstood. I was only explaining that these cars are expensive. Many people come in just to look and—" "Enough," the son interrupted, his tone like steel. "You didn't judge them because of money. You judged them because of their appearance, because of their skin. You thought their worth could be measured by the clothes they wore. Tell me, was that your idea of customer service?" The silence grew heavier. A few employees lowered their eyes, ashamed. Customers whispered quietly, some shaking their heads at the memory of what they had seen. The salesman opened his mouth, but no excuse came out. His arrogance had melted into fear. The son took a step closer, his voice low but powerful. My parents taught me to work hard, to respect people, to never look down on anyone. They raised me with dignity. And yesterday, you tried to take that dignity from them. That was your mistake. He turned and gestured toward the two Rolls-Royces parked outside, their glossy bodies gleaming in the morning sun. Do you see those cars? They belong to us. My parents will take one, I will take the other, and we will pay in full today. Gasps echoed across the showroom. Employees froze in disbelief, jaws dropping. Customers stared, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Two Rolls-Royces purchased at once. It was more than most dealers sold in a year. The arrogant salesman's face drained of color. The very people he had mocked were now about to make the dealership's biggest sale in years. His lips trembled as he tried to speak, but no words came out. The elderly couple stood tall now, their pride restored, their quiet strength shining brighter than ever. The mother's eyes glistened, not from shame this time, but from vindication. Her husband placed his arm around her shoulders and whispered softly, "See, dear, we belong anywhere we choose to be." The son looked around the room, his voice calm but cutting. Let this be a reminder, never judge a book by its cover. You don't know the story inside. And respect costs nothing. The room remained silent. Justice had walked through the door, and it was only beginning to unfold. The dealership buzzed with nervous energy as the billionaire son's words hung in the air. Two Rolls-Royces paid in full. That single declaration had shaken every corner of the showroom. Employees rushed to appear helpful, their attitudes transformed. The same staff who had smirked yesterday now scrambled to bring refreshments, chairs, and brochures. An elderly black couple, once humiliated, now sat in the dealership's VIP lounge, treated with a respect they should have received from the beginning. A server placed crystal glasses of water in front of them, her hands trembling slightly as she whispered, "I'm so sorry for what happened yesterday." The woman nodded politely, her heart still heavy but lifted by her son's strength. The arrogant salesman stood in the corner, his face pale, his once proud posture broken. He could not escape the eyes of his colleagues, who now looked at him with judgment, rather than admiration. The manager, a sharp man in a gray suit, stormed over, his expression tight with anger. "Do you realize what you've done?" he hissed. "You insulted the very customers who are making the largest purchase this dealership has seen in years." The salesman stammered, sweat forming at his temple. I didn't know." "That's the point," the manager snapped. "You didn't bother to know. You judged them the moment you saw them." His voice echoed across the showroom, drawing attention. The customers nearby nodded in agreement, some whispering to each other about how quickly arrogance can lead to downfall. Meanwhile, the billionaire son sat with his parents as the paperwork was prepared. His calm demeanor never broke, though his eyes remained sharp. He wasn't here for revenge. He was here for dignity. Every detail of the purchase was done with quiet authority, signatures placed, accounts verified, payments cleared, no loans, no financing, just proof of power wrapped in humility. As the contracts were finalized, employees lined up to congratulate the couple, their smiles genuine now. The father held the pen firmly, signing with steady hands. The mother looked on with tears glistening in her eyes. She leaned toward her son and whispered, "You've given us back more than cars today. You've given us back our pride." Her son smiled softly. "No one can take that from you, not while I'm here." When the final signatures were complete, the manager returned with trembling respect. "Sir, ma'am, your cars will be ready immediately. Please accept our apologies for the disgraceful behavior you experienced." He shot a glare at the arrogant salesman, who stood frozen, humiliated before everyone. The son rose to his feet, his voice calm but powerful. "Apologies are words. What matters is change. Treat the next person who walks through these doors with respect, no matter what they look like. If not, these cars will mean nothing." His words sank deep, echoing through the hearts of everyone present. Customers clapped softly, some even standing in admiration. The arrogant salesman lowered his head, his pride shattered. Instant karma had arrived, not with shouting or anger, but with quiet dignity and overwhelming truth. The two Rolls-Royces were driven to the front, their polished exteriors gleaming like symbols of justice. The couple stepped outside, heads held high, no longer burdened by shame but lifted by vindication. The world that had mocked them only a day earlier now bowed in silence. And as the engines roared to life, the message was clear. Respect is priceless, and prejudice has no place where dignity walks tall. The sunlight bounced off the polished hoods of the two Rolls-Royces, turning the street outside into a stage. Curious passers-by stopped in their tracks, pulling out phones to capture the rare sight. Two majestic cars side by side waiting for their new owners. And then the moment arrived, one that no one in that dealership or outside it would ever forget. The elderly father stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly as the keys were placed in his palm. For years he had driven modest cars, tools of necessity rather than symbols of luxury. Now, for the first time, he stood before a machine that represented triumph. The salesman who once mocked him now stood only feet away, forced to watch silently as the man he disrespected claimed victory. His wife took her own set of keys, her face glowing with quiet pride. Tears welled in her eyes, but these were not tears of shame. They were tears of joy, of vindication, of a lifetime of dignity reclaimed. She whispered to her husband, "I never imagined we'd see this day." He smiled softly. "Neither did I. But our son always saw more in us than the world did." Their son, standing tall beside them, gestured toward the cars. "Mom, Dad, these are yours. Today you don't just drive cars, you drive respect. Let the world see what happens when dignity meets its destiny." The father slid into the driver's seat of his Rolls-Royce, the leather wrapping around him like a throne. The mother did the same in the other car, her fingers gently tracing the wheel. With a deep breath, the engines came alive, their powerful roars silencing the whispers of yesterday's humiliation. People outside clapped and cheered, some even shouting words of encouragement. The dealership staff, once smug and judgmental, now stood in awe. The arrogant salesman could not hide from the scene. His face burned red as customers and colleagues threw him sharp glances. Every clap outside, every cheer was a reminder of his downfall. What had been entertainment for him yesterday was now his shame today. The son turned one last time to face him. His voice carried, strong and steady. "Remember this moment, not because of the cars, but because of the lesson. Respect everyone who walks through these doors, rich or poor, black or white, young or old. You don't know who you are speaking to, and if you can't give respect, then you don't deserve to stand here." The words struck harder than any punishment. The salesman lowered his head, unable to meet the eyes of anyone around him. His arrogance had been replaced with silence, his pride with humiliation. Instant karma had spoken louder than anything else. The crowd outside erupted as the couple drove their cars side by side, their Rolls-Royces gliding down the street like a royal procession. Strangers honked their horns in celebration, people on the sidewalks waved, and phones recorded the powerful moment. It was more than luxury. It was justice on wheels. Inside the cars, the parents exchanged glances filled with love and pride. For years they had endured judgment, endured whispers, endured being underestimated. But today they weren't just seen, they were celebrated. And behind them, their son followed in silence, knowing that he had not only defended his parents' honor, but had sent a message to everyone watching. Dignity will always rise above prejudice. The ride had only begun. But already, respect had been restored. The sun was dipping lower in the sky as the two Rolls-Royces glided through the streets, their engines humming like a promise. Everywhere they went, people stopped to stare. Children pointed with wide eyes, adults pulled out their phones, and strangers applauded without even knowing the full story. But the ones who knew, the staff and customers back at the dealership, stood forever changed. When the family returned home, the elderly couple stepped out of their cars slowly, as if savoring every second of this justice. Neighbors gathered at the gate, their mouths falling open at the sight. "Is this real?" one whispered. Another clapped her hands together. "Look at them. They deserve it. The father smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He wrapped his arm around his wife's shoulders. For once, people are looking at us with admiration, not doubt. His wife's eyes sparkled with tears. Yes, but the greatest gift is not the cars. It's that today the world saw us with respect. Their son stepped forward, his expression calm yet filled with fire. Mom, Dad, today was not about luxury, it was about truth. The world judged you by your clothes, by your skin, by your age. But what they didn't see was your worth. I only wanted them to see what I have always known. You are priceless. The couple embraced him, their tears flowing freely now. It was not weakness, it was release. Decades of silent struggles, unspoken humiliations, and quiet endurance had been answered with one moment of undeniable dignity. Back at the dealership, the arrogant salesman sat in the manager's office, his head bowed. His career hung by a thread, but worse than that was the humiliation etched into his memory. Every glance of disgust from his colleagues, every cheer he heard outside, every word the billionaire's son had spoken replayed in his mind like a punishment that would never end. He had learned too late that arrogance can destroy everything in a single day. The manager shook his head in disappointment. This business is about more than selling cars. It's about trust, respect, and dignity. You forgot that. And now you've been shown the cost of your ignorance. Meanwhile, videos of the event spread across the internet. Clips of the Rolls-Royces pulling up, the son confronting the salesman, and the elderly couple driving away together went viral. Headlines appeared overnight. Black couple humiliated at dealership. Billionaire son returns with justice. The world celebrated the story as one of instant karma, a tale of dignity restored. But for the family, it wasn't about headlines. It was about healing. Sitting together that evening, the father said softly, "We faced pain yesterday, but today, we showed the world who we are." His wife squeezed his hand. And maybe, just maybe, someone watching will learn to treat others better. Their son looked at them both, his voice steady. That's the lesson. Money can buy cars, but respect must be given freely. Never judge people by their appearance, because the same people you look down on today may be the ones you'll look up to tomorrow. The room grew quiet as the weight of his words settled. Outside, the two Rolls-Royces shone under the porch lights, not as trophies of wealth, but as symbols of justice. And so the story ended, not with revenge, but with a reminder. A reminder to everyone watching, listening, and sharing. Respect everyone, because respect costs nothing, but the lack of it can cost you everything.